I want to welcome you to the most remarkable journey you will ever take. We have long wondered about the mysteries behind the resurrection of the dead, or the transformation of human to divine. We have asked ourselves these questions. Why am I human? Where are we going as a human race? Why did God create us? In these next 26 weeks, we're going to learn the answers to these questions. We're also going to learn about the powers that lie within us, that creativity that enables us to prophesy, to heal, and to discern. Our sailing vessel that will take us from earth to the heavens is known and called the Nautilus. If you remember, the sea creature is one which always closes and seals off its chambers as it outgrows it and builds a new one. And we must do the same thing, for we must cease being what we are in order to become something different. And like the Nautilus, we must leave behind our old ideas and concepts. So please join me on this very wondrous journey. I'm your hostess, Elizabeth MacDonald Burrows. Welcome to another episode aboard the Nautilus. And of course, the reason that we sail on the Nautilus from earth to heaven is because we must always leave behind the shell of our past in order to go on into the future. That we must cease being what we are in order to become something different. And we all have such a magnificence and great potential in us that I always feel sad for those who may close the door on new ideas and new concepts, because that's why we're here, to learn, to grow, to understand, and then our destiny reveals itself to us. And each of us have an equally important role. This world as a whole cannot move on out of human progression until you do, or I do. So each and every one of us have an equal responsibility to bring about this very wonderful world of the future. And of course, I have always had faith in mankind. I admire mankind and I love people. So therefore, I know that we will work together as we have in the past. In floods and hurricanes and tornadoes, we will one day work together to end and cease the sorrows that befall us upon this planet upon which we live. Until then, life can be the world of great exploration. It can only be that way if we have an open mind, willing to explore, willing to journey. Because we can live on earth and consider it as a place of hell. We can live upon earth and consider it something we just have to go through. Or we can be like those early adventurers. We can wander on a trail not yet carved that is written in our own soul and climb that great mountain and find all the adventure in life that we would desire. I cannot imagine living in the dull, doldrum, humdrum life of sameness. I have always said that like the stagnant pond must flow to the river in order to cease being stagnant, that I shall never become a stagnant pond, but I shall always be open to new ideas, concepts of the future, and be in my mind and consciousness in the world of tomorrow, not as a dreamer who doesn't manifest anything, but as a person who is awake, who sees, who can journey through life with a reasonable amount of adventure, a reasonable amount of hope, and to carve new frontiers for others. This is all within our power, and we can make this earth a wondrous wondrous place to live. Almost heaven if you just simply open the portals of the soul. We left off last week with working at self-healing. We're going to review that today, and because we did not have time last week, in order to close our healing, we're going to do another short one on ourselves so that we will learn how to close a healing and how to once again work in suggestive healing after we have given ourselves a healing treatment. Then we'll talk about the healing of others, because natural healing is our world of tomorrow. Alternative medicine is here to stay. And the miracles of science that lie yet ahead of us in the conquering of so many things that we have only thus far dreamed about. I think in terms of one of the television shows I once saw of a man who wanted to be a truck driver, but he had been born with a kind of a twisted limb that was his arm kind of twisted around him like this. And because of this, he was restricted from ever becoming the thing that he really wanted to be. Science embedded a small computer chip into his arm that caused natural muscular responses. The arm straightened out, and he was able to follow his dreams. Pretty soon, I'll get it out in a moment, prosthetics will be as movable as our own limbs. Cancer will be a thing of the past. Cutting a person open for surgery will also be something of the past. Gradually, little by little, that is diminishing. But someday, it will all be done without pain. That is a part of our world of tomorrow. And we will look upon our treatment of cancer today as being just as barbaric as what bleeding people was in early centuries. So the world ahead of mankind in the world of alternative medicine and the world of regular medicine, as it grows, as it once did from the bleeding of people, as it grows as much from that point to this point, again it takes another step, and there we will be in a world of medicine that is unknown today. Yes, we have wonder ahead of us. In the meantime, there's the struggle to discover, the struggle to learn, and the struggle to try to take care of ourselves, because most of us cannot afford medicine, expensive medicine. We cannot afford long-term hospitalization. Many times we cannot afford the nursing homes that are needed. So we really need to know how to do things for ourselves so that we can live a quality life as long as we live, and that we do not have the need of nursing homes and long-term hospitalization, or at least we can reduce our risk of this. We perhaps cannot, certainly in our current step of progression, we cannot eliminate this entirely, but we can reduce it, and we can reduce our costs by doing some things to take care of ourselves and to heal ourselves and to go to those who do natural healing. I say that a little bit with tongue-in-cheek, because one who does natural healing, who is not united with the force of God, will not perform the greatness that I feel a human being really deserves. And so I cannot tell you at this moment how many practitioners there might be out there that do healing that in reality are united with the Spirit. But we know that there are some. And we know that all healing works if you, the person who is receiving the healing, believe in it, and he or she who is doing the healing believe in what they are doing. For me, it is more than a belief, it is a knowing. It is that unity with God and knowing that His Spirit can flow through in order to heal someone else. So we're going to talk about that a little later. If you remember, last week we talked about the procedure necessary in order to make ourselves very comfortable and to well prepare ourselves for natural healing. That we wore loose-fitting clothes, that we made certain there was air in the room and that the room was not too hot. And one of the reasons that we wanted fresh air was in order to purify the virus, the germs, the disease that is ever present in the place that we live. And so with a measure of air coming in, as long as it's not right directly over the face, the room not cold, not even somewhat cold, it should be just cool, with a comfortable, warm cover over you. We are then prepared to do healing. As I talked about last week, dressed in comfortable clothes, I usually lay flat on my back, and I have a tendency to cross my feet because I'm comfortable that way, and with the arms down at the side, I lay back on the pillow and began the process by first a prayer to God. And after I have prayed for my healing to God, and our prayers should always be from our heart. We don't have to pray the repetitious prayers of others. We have a sincere request, whether it is for healing or whether it is for some other thing in our life. And remember this, God hears every prayer, and He answers every prayer. But our Father loves us. God loves us more than we could ever love our human children. I cannot define to you the experience of divine love. But I can tell you that He loves all of us, and He loves us all the same, and He loves us so much that He is not going to take the lessons away from us that we have to learn. As we send our children to school to learn to read and to write and to learn arithmetic, God sends us into earth to school to learn. He is there to give us strength. He is the parent we can turn to ask advice in how to deal and cope with our problems of today. But God is not going to take our problems away every time we ask if it is a lesson that we need to learn in order to progress so that one day we'll be worthy to live in His kingdom forever. And we ask where His kingdom is, on what far-reaching galaxy or planet. God's kingdom is an interpenetrating kingdom. We are separated here by vibrational frequency only. And as we change our vibration, we ascend higher and higher. If we change that vibration for the good, and we purify, cleanse, and grow. When I talk about purification and cleansing and all of this, I'm really not talking about being on our knees in absolute mortification. I am talking about the fact that we try to change the way we think. We try to change the way we act toward one another. We know that peace is the way of our heart. If it's the way of our own heart, it has to be the way in the hearts of all others. And that if we are unkind to a person, we have disrupted their peace. And if they are unkind to us, they disturb our peace. So these are the things that we work on. And in working on them, they bring us a tremendous liberation and allow the love of God to express more through us, that we might learn to love as He learns, as He loves. So this divine love is always there, and He is not going to spoil the child. He wants to give us everything that He has and everything that He is. And He is so much more than a deity upon a throne. He is the originator of every great book that has ever been written in science, religion, philosophy. He is the greatest master of all masters. He is the universe of the stars and materialized this universe as the greatest materialization that has ever been. So he is not going to take away from us the opportunity to grow and to be and to possess a part of his kingdom. So when you have a prayer that isn't answered, it isn't because he hasn't heard it. It is because it is not in your best interest for him to answer in the way that you want it answered. He immediately becomes aware of the problem, and remember, he is forever there to always help us, to always listen to us, to always do for us in a manner that is constructive. And oh, such kindness. And in our times of deep sorrow, he comforts us so easily. So keep that in mind, and as we heal ourselves and others, there are times when we will prepare to heal someone else that it really isn't going to be allowed. I mean, we can do all the healing in the world, and that person may not get well. You must not lose your faith in the power of God, which is yours to use for healing. You must understand that God has deemed that this person must experience certain lessons. Probably a good example to help you to understand this. I had a couple of friends, a doctor and his wife. He was an alcoholic, and I mean a long-term alcoholic. I saw that one day he was going to have a stroke out by the swimming pool, and he would almost die, but not quite, and that he would not, in the last years of his life, have a quality life. He would be partially crippled. So I brought this to his wife's attention and asked her if she really loved him enough to take him into intervention. She did love him enough to take him into intervention. And so he stopped his drinking. And of course, almost immediately, within a few short months, after he had ceased his drinking, he came down with cancer. Of course, many people thought, because he was a friend, that I would immediately run to heal him. But I saw the selfishness that he had administered. I won't say I saw, I was shown, because my human capabilities do not have that sort of inner vision. But God showed, I was shown that his selfishness, how he had hurt so many people during his long years of alcoholism, and how now he had a chance to learn what suffering was in a conscious state, not a state that would be oblivion in alcohol, but a state of consciousness where he would remember suffering and see. So I told him, I said, I cannot heal you. But I said, and I knew, I think, at the time that he would possibly get well, but his healing depended upon himself. And I remember him saying to me many weeks later, after chemotherapy treatment, how he saw these young children who had cancer and how brave they were and how they accepted their condition so much better than he perhaps was accepting, and how these children were such an example for him in his own fight for life. He would never have seen that. He would never have learned that if he had been healed. He went on to take up swimming, to eat more healthy, to live a different lifestyle. And to this day, the cancer is in remission. And I rejoice that it is, as I would with anybody. But he changed his way of life. Would he have changed his way of life if I had been allowed to heal him? So when we heal someone and it doesn't take, don't ever feel that the fault is in you or that the fault is with God. It just is that that person has certain lessons to learn, and God has deemed they will be best learned through the continuum of their illness. So, but other times, it's kind of like having a cosmic bank up there in the sky. Sometimes someone has done so much good for other people that even though they may be harsh upon the body and not eat properly and have a disease that, like cancer, they pray for a healing, or we do a healing on them, and then suddenly we have one of those great miracles. I remember a woman who had been diabetes for many years, and she, of course, had to give herself shots of insulin every single day. And she came to one of the Magic World Healing Clinics that I was conducting and became, of course, our patient on the very last night of the healing clinics. And as we gathered around her, this time kind of in a circle, I had taught the technique of healing that is being taught to you, and we were all using that same technique. And she said to herself and to God, it's either now or never. She received a miraculous healing, and I'm smiling because when she went into the doctor a very short time afterwards, he said, "Did you eat before you came in?" She said, "Yes." He said, "I can find no indication of this disease at all." He said, "The next time, eat more." But she had been healed after years of diabetes, but she had done so much for other people. She had helped people in so many ways that when she asked for this healing, God granted her that miracle. And of course, hopefully she went on to live a better lifestyle physically so that that condition would not come back upon her. You see, we often get a healing and then we go running out and we do the same things that we've always done. We go out to the bar and have a few drinks, or we eat a lot of chocolate cake, or sit down with a great big bowl of candy. And we go back to the old habits. And when we do this, after we have been granted a miracle and have been granted our healing, and we go back to this way of life, then we're not nearly as apt to get another healing. So with these things in mind, perhaps we will not be too discouraged if we don't get a miracle the first time that we reach out our hand with expectation. But something will happen. I walked into the hospital one time. One of my parishioners called, and it was 3 o'clock in the morning. And her husband had had a heart attack. And I may have mentioned him before, but anyway, I went to the hospital. He was on life support system. And I thought, what do I heal? Do I want to interfere with his life? Should I just pray that he makes transition? I couldn't do that. I could not pray for God to take life. So I thought, well, the best I can do is to pray for peace for him, because this body being kind of jerked around on life support system looks so uncomfortable and so miserable. And so I prayed. And I stood there at 3 a.m. in the morning, and I prayed. And it was powerful enough that the machine, it literally stopped the life support system. It didn't close it down electrically. The body became still and peaceful and like it was in deep slumber. And I felt I could do no more. But on the way driving back home, I thought about the man having 2 sons that were yet young. They were probably 10 and 12 years old. He had a wife that loved him. I was a renunciate. I had left everything I owned or possessed to journey with this path with God. And so I didn't have loved ones waiting for me. I didn't have the responsibility of taking care of a husband and 2 children. So when I got home, it was about this time, it was about 5 a.m. in the morning, I prayed. I said, please God, take my life, save his, spare his, and take my life instead. So I offered my life for him in a prayer that was very sincere. And suddenly God had me up writing the funeral services. And I said, but he isn't he is not deceased yet. And got right the funeral services. So I got up and began to work on the funeral services, which occupied me pretty much the most of the day. And I'm very human many times, and I complain to God, you know, why are you making me do this? He really isn't, he is not deceased yet. Of course, that was many years ago. I don't question quite as much now. But so finally, I finished the funeral services. I was notified by his wife that he would live. And so I, and also, but she said that they say that he might be like a vegetable. And I said, don't you believe it for one moment, because if God does a job, he doesn't do it halfway. Your husband will not be a vegetable. He has been healed, and I don't know whether I mentioned, I certainly did not mention I had offered my life. And so the next thing I know, she said, I'm being called 2 or 3 days later. He's going to leave the hospital. And within a week and a half, he was walking into the church where I was minister at that time. And he was on a walker, but of course he remained getting better until he was really quite well. And interestingly enough, he was allowed to live only as long as it took to rear his children. And when he departed, his children were then, I think, 19, 20 years old, or 20 and 22. And his wife soon found another person to love very much. And her life, too, went on restored. So it was like God said, okay, here is an extension of life that is going to be given to you because someone has offered their life for yours. Of course, he didn't take my life, and that's all right. But I did offer it in sincerity. So again, that was another one of those great miracles that I watched all the way through from the beginning until this man was just natural. We always think, too, of healings being miraculous, that it's going to happen in a split second. Sometimes it does, but not always. You see, sometimes when we heal a person and we've done a really good job of healing someone else or even ourselves, that healing power continues to work in us for several days, diminishing less each day, so that when that amount of God energy has been put inside of our own body or inside of someone else's, it will continue its work until it just gradually drifts away. So, and the person getting better and better and better. So all healings are not instantaneous. So because that miracle doesn't happen in this split second, does not mean that it hasn't taken place. And we never doubt. I always leave it in the hands of God, by thy will, not my will. And go on to know that I have done the very best that I can when I'm doing a healing. And that what is to be is in the hands of God. And you must, in your healing, be the same way. And never be discouraged. Always be there. So, as we started to review our current, the self-healing, to wear the loose clothes, to have air, to lay on the bed, to do our prayers, and I always know the things that I might have done that help to bring these illnesses. If it deals with viruses, it's always because someone else gave it to me. On the amount of salads and greens and things like that, healthy things that I eat, no self-respecting virus would dare attack me. But it's always brought in by others who really don't quite take care of themselves as well. And so an illness, we lay there, we pray. Oh, Heavenly Father, I ask for a healing, and to feel thy presence, and to know that thy Spirit will forever be there for my needs, and that you will heal me by the touch of your power, and that you wish all mankind, as well as myself, not to be sick. And I know that you bring no illness, that we create these ourselves. But, oh Father, I am weak and human, And sometimes I don't have the strength to always live in the perfect lifestyle. Forgive me for my iniquities, and still grant to me the loving touch of your healing. And then remember, we went into a form of suggestive healing, a form of relaxation, relaxing ourselves so that our mind was totally focused upon moving toward God. And if we can review that also, you can also close your eyes. And remember, always use the word I. I am, I feel myself relaxing. Because you must tune in, shall I say, or your own body must surrender itself to your will. So the I makes it that you are in control. God is in control of us, but our body is subject unto our soul. So I feel myself comfortably settling upon the sea. The waves are lulling me into relaxation. As far as I can see, I feel the ocean holding me aloft by gentle waves, rocking me gently. And I feel the peace of the sea and the hush of everything around me. And I see the sky, white puffy clouds moving across the sky. And I'm beginning to feel as though earth and the sky have come together. And as they come together, I feel myself drifting deeper and deeper in consciousness. And I perceive ahead a great light. And I'm carried by the wind and the clouds and the sea toward this light. And I feel myself enter. And now I am surrounded by light. And I feel a mighty presence all around me. I feel myself the very heart of God. And I breathe in. And as I do so, I breathe in the Spirit of God. For I seek oneness. I open my arms to embrace Him. As if I were embracing someone that I loved. I breathe in as we come into oneness. And I feel His Spirit around me and in me. And as I exhale, I allow His healing power to flow through me. I feel it through every cell of my body, through my lungs, heart, and every aspect of my body pulsates with His Spirit flowing through it. And now I go to the area of the affliction. And there in the area of affliction, I flow to oneness. And the power of God is like a breeze flowing through. Healing, healing. And now we lie silent, breathing in, coming to oneness with His Spirit as we are healed. And after a time, we must bid farewell. Oh, thank you, O Heavenly Father, for the gift of your healing power, the touch of your hand and the warmth of your heart. Thank you that you are there for me and for all of us, and that we have but to come and to step within your consciousness. Thank you for this healing that you have given me. And then we began to feel our bodies. Become aware of the surroundings that may extend outside the body. And at last, we open our eyes. The actual process of the healing, once we are in a deep level of consciousness and we are feeling His Spirit flowing through us, and we are one with that Spirit, about 20 minutes, and 20 to 30 minutes. First, you will have a hard time staying into the healing that long because you're not accustomed to it. But if you keep practicing, you'll soon get adept. And it is the most beautiful feeling to become one with His Spirit. So this healing takes upon itself a sense of beauty and a feeling of such wonderment. By this I'm not talking about mental wonderment, but just the contentment and the feeling of almost joy. So these self-healing treatments can be beautiful and wonderful moments between you and God. And no matter how much I may respect the various techniques of healing, of natural healing alternative medicine that's out there in the outside world. You'll never, ever get such a wonderful feeling or such a complete healing with the term Reiki or Chi, because God is a living presence. And therefore a living presence, using only a part of that under self-will can never match that wondrous and glorious union we have when we are healing with only God. And then afterward, if you can, rest for an hour, fall asleep. The healing aspect will work much better because it will continue to work while you are asleep and with a kind of a non-interference. In other words, with your consciousness or mind asleep. It's not going to interfere with all of the healing that is taking place inside the body. So if you can possibly rest for a couple hours afterwards, that's extraordinarily helpful and will expedite your healing. Now when you get up, don't do what many people, oh, I'm still sick, my nose is still running, or I still have this pain, or I still can feel the wound. So I don't know whether I gave myself a healing treatment. I don't know whether it worked. I'm new at this, on and on. God is a living presence. He heard you. He was there. He healed. This may be one of those times where the healing process may take place over 2 or 3 days. And the thing is, you say, okay, but I would have healed anyway in 2 or 3 days, or 4 or 5. I'm going to tell you, you'll never heal. The healing is expedited so fast. Something that might take you 7 or 8 days is gone in 3. And so you're fully aware that you had this help. And often there is a miracle when we have had something that is of serious nature, such as one of the more serious diseases. And if nothing else, if the disease is not taken completely from us, we do another treatment. Chronic diseases like cancer and leukemia and things like this, and AIDS and these very hard diseases are going to take a number of treatments. You're not necessarily going to get that miracle the first time, and it's unlikely that you will. So you go into healing. I remember working with a cancer patient who had cancer, and it was 3 months of working almost every night before I got a release that she was healed. So we have to understand that it's going to take that energy that we have used of God's is often dissipated quickly when the disease is very, very serious. And so if you're really sick in bed and you can hold your consciousness, if you have cancer or AIDS or something, and it's not so far gone that the drugs keep you out all the time, give this a whirl. So after, we never tell ourselves that we're not healed. We accept our healing. I know that God's Spirit, I can feel God's Spirit when it's in me, and I know that I've had a healing, and I go on with my chores and my work, those things I'm capable of under whatever illness I may have. I go on knowing that the healing has taken place and that I'm going to be much better the next day. To me, it's always marvelous to wake up the next morning, the day after the healing, and just feel so much better, just unbelievably better. It's always such a thrill. So you can expect a very great increase, expedite your getting well. As we go on then with today, this will take us into the world of healing others, and we'll spend this last period of time working with some comprehension. You've already learned the basic lesson by healing yourself, and we're reminded of Jesus' words, "Physician, heal thyself." So when you can heal yourself, you're not going to have that much trouble in learning how to heal other people. And next week we'll be taking up a remarkable journey into the world beyond mortal boundaries. What happens to us when we remove our embodiment in the state that on earth, sadly, we call death, with many horrors attached to it, when in reality, It's a beautiful act of nature and as natural as a flower, dropping its petals in the fall to spring up anew in the springtime. So we will now talk about the world of healing others. One of my favorite stories about healing someone else is Swami Chinmayananda, who was an Eastern Hindu and considered a master. And someone asked him about the powers, and Swami said that he didn't pay any attention to such things as powers because he had there were other things, and he just wasn't sure. So God gave some one thing or another. So he kind of sloughed it off, and I thought, he had diabetes. And I said, well, I thought to myself, Swami, I'm going to fix you. So when he was in Seattle, I immediately, the day after his arrival, I had this inclination to go into healing. And it was there that I really learned one of the great arts of healing others, because I was taught in that moment and in that time. And of course, a couple days later, I was asked, Elizabeth, what are you doing to me? Because I have had no problem with the diabetes since I've been here. And I said, oh, Swami, you could have told me many things, but nothing would please me as much to hear as to hear that. Later on, I found out when he became ill many months after that, that he entered into a natural health clinic to be worked upon. And when someone asked him about the powers again, he said, well, God gives some the gift of healing, and others he gives the gift of something else. So Swami changed in his attitude toward this. But as we prepare to heal others, it helps us to place our hands on them, if at all possible, although in consciousness we are one, and therefore people who are in New York, we can work on them sitting here and now. But to be able to lay our hands upon someone helps us to focus the mind. And one of the important things is to be able to concentrate upon the healing if we want to give that person a very powerful healing. So if we can lay the hands on them, that is helpful. And normally when we have someone laid out on a table where we're working in teams, as we will someone who may, the doctors may have given up hope on someone. They may come to us and we will get a healing team together. And we will heal for 15 minutes, move on, and another team comes in, and we'll keep rotating this so that we're always very, very fresh. We always lay our hands upon the person. So anyway, if we lay our hands, we don't want to just let God do it. I think that may sound strange, but there's that little story of the farmer who gave the person a parcel of land, and which was rocky and stony, and 5 years later the farmer is out walking, and the young man comes up and bows at his feet and says, thank you, thank you, thank you, see what I have done. And the farmer looked over there and saw that this had been turned into a beautiful fertile field. And he said, oh, look what God has done. And the young man said, well, if you say there is a God, I believe you and I accept it, but I want you to remember what it looked like when just God had it. So when we lay hands upon someone and we just want God to do it, then we're not going to generate the power that we can. And we want to become adept like Jesus was, who had this tremendous power because of his unity with God. So we place our hands in then, and as we do this, we then began to allow our consciousness to go the same path that it did when we were doing self-healing. And we try to take our client or our patient into that same light. As I have a patient laying out in front of me, I put my hands upon them and I say, now I want you to focus upon God. Put your mind upon God. Think of a beautiful and green field where a soft wind is blowing and the daffodils dance in the wind. that up above the skies is blue and azure as it is on a summer's day. Listen to the sound and to the music. Let yourself go. Relax. Relax. Now you have moved into a great light. Light is as bright as 1,000 suns. And you perceive that you are in heaven with God and His angels. Surrounded by the healing forces of the great angelic kingdom. And now we breathe in. And as we do so, we bring that presence of God. We try to unite once more. The presence of God, O Heavenly Father. I have come to you with this person to ask for your healing forces and healing power to heal her or him. And then as we exhale, our union with God and our oneness flows through us into the person that we're healing. And then we focus upon the area of affliction. If it's cancer or something like this, it's the whole body. And then we become co-creators with God. Like a doctor and an assistant working, not side by side, but arm over arm and hand over hand. So that that power flows into that person. Thou art part of the wonder of the heavenly world. And for the moment I must withdraw from this because our time is almost up. We will go on next week with more about the healing of others. Join me aboard the Nautilus for another journey from earth to heaven. I want to thank you for joining us on this special journey aboard the Nautilus, which has taken us from earth to heaven. If you have any questions or wish to be on our mailing list, please call area code 206-362-4134. Area code 206-362-4134. Or join us on our website, Mystery School, one word, mysteryschool.org. The God in me bows to the God in you, and may heaven walk with you all week.